जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी। जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन। यमुना तीर वनचारी। यमुना तीरा वनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी। जय हम विष्णुपाद परमहंस प्रवृत्ताचार्य अष्टोत्तर सलय भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस प्रवृत्ताचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्रील भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंडगिरी गोवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय। मथुरा धाम की जय। नवद्वीप धाम की जय। जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। गंगा माई की जय। यमुना माई की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। गौर प्रेमानंदे। और ग्लोरीज टू द असेंबल्ड। और ग्लोरीज टू द असेंबल्ड। और ग्लोरीज टू श्री गुरु एंड श्री गुरु। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जायमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवती नैष्टकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च गोविंदाय नमो नमः। We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 5, Vidura's Talks with Maitreya, text 28. Soapi amsha guna kalatma Bhagavad drushti gochara Atmanam vyakurodatma Vishwasya sisruchaya Soapi shanka guna kalatma Bhagavad drushti gochara Atmanam vyakurodatma विश्वस्य शुश्रूषया सोऽप्यं सगुणकालात्मा भगवद्दृष्टिगोचरा आत्मानं व्यकुरादात्मा विश्वस्यास्य शुश्रूषया विश्वस्यास्य शुश्रूषया सोऽप्यं सगुणकालात्मा भगवद्दृष्टिगोचरा आत्मानं व्यकुरदात्मा विश्वस्यास्य शुश्रूषया सोऽप्यं सगुणकालात्मा भगवद्दृष्टिगोचरा आत्मानं व्यकुरदात्मा विश्वस्यास्य शुश्रूषया माताजी सोऽप्यं सगुणकालात्मा भगवद्दृष्टिगोचरा आत्मानं व्यकुरोदात्मा विश्वस्यास्य शुश्रूषया स महत्तत्व अपि also amsha purusha plenary expansion guna chiefly the quality of ignorance kala the duration of time atma full consciousness Bhagavad, the personality of Godhead, Drishti Gocharaha, range of sight, Atmanam, many different forms, Vyavakrat, differential, Atma, reservoir, Vishwasya, the world, the would-be entities, Asya, of this, Sisrukchaya, generate the false ego. Translation. Thereafter, the Mahatattva differentiated itself into many different forms as the reservoir of the would-be entities. The Mahatattva is chiefly in the mode of ignorance, and it generates the false ego. It is a plenary expansion of the personality of Godhead, which, with full consciousness of creative principles and time for fructification. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The Mahat Tattva is the via medium between pure spirit and material existence. It is the junction of matter and spirit wherefrom the false ego of the living entity is generated. All living entities are differentiated parts and parcels of personality of Godhead. Under the pressure of false ego, the conditioned souls, although parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, claim to be the enjoyers of material nature. This false ego is the binding force of material existence. The Lord again and again gives a chance to the bewildered conditioned souls to get free from this false ego. And that is why the material creation takes place in at intervals. He gives the conditioned souls all facilities for rectifying the activities of the false ego, but he does not interfere with their small independence as part and parcels of the Lord. Om Agyantimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavasya Shri Rupam Sagrajatan Sahagana Raghugunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lilita Shri Vishakhanvitamsha Namaom Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashat Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rushabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktarunda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, welcome everyone for the Bhagavatam class today, and I seek blessings all the assembled Vaishnavas here and those who are watching this online also. So in today's verse, we are discussing about Srila Prabhupada is talking about in the translation and the purport also, talking about the position and nature of Mahat Tattva. And Prabhupada mentions that actually Krishna is the cause of all causes, and the Mahat Tattva is also created by Lord Krishna. And as the position it is concerned, it is considered as that is a junction of matter and spirit, and from where the false ego of the living entity is generated. In Bhagavatam there are various verses, in 10th canto also it is a description that how the Lord is a Ashray Tattva, and rest all, including this material creation and Mahat Tattva and all the living entities, are Ashrita Tattva. And we are basically supposed to take Ashray of the Ashray Tattva. So that is our real position. So to understand Krishna, we need to actually understand both this Ashraya Tattva and Ashrita Tattva also. And here the mention is there that in purport Prabhupada writes that Mahat Tattva is chiefly in the mode of ignorance, and it generates the false ego. And the junction part which is also there. So we can actually analyze this by a simple example of a mirror. You know, mirror is placed in sunlight. What does it does? Like it reflects the sunlight, right? And it appears glowing through, though it is not own light, but the mirror starts thinking that I am the source of this light, forgetting that the light is actually coming from the sun. So if we compare this mirror as the material energy or the subtle body and mind, and the sunlight as the soul or the spiritual energy from the sunlight is coming, and the dust which is covering this mirror, it's like a false ego. It's like ahankar. So the junction where the mirror meets the light is where the illusion is arising. That's what, you know, can be compared with today's purport also. And this is the point of contact between the spirit and matter. And that's where the false ego is generated. The mirror or the living entity actually starts thinking that, okay, I'm the doer of this. You know, wrongly identifying. So it makes us think that, you know, I am the body and I'm the doer. So the combination of this ignorance and the false ego can have very deadly impact on our devotional life. And that's what is discussed here. So we will just try and look at these two aspects of ignorance and false ego through three perspectives of one is knowledge, skills and values. So we'll try to analyze this, try to understand and discuss about these things. So first we will see about the impact of ignorance on knowledge in our devotional service. So what is the real understanding? I mean, in broad perspective, if you look at it, the real definition from the context of devotional service or devotion is that, who we are, that we are the spirit soul and we are not the body and we are the servant. And Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, and the purpose of our life is to engage in the loving service of Krishna. That is the whole aim of the purpose of life. That is in nutshell, broadly we can say that, the real knowledge is. The knowledge can be, different people can try to acquire knowledge in different ways for various aspects. But from our context, this is what we can see. And the ignorance of this knowledge is that basically it's exactly opposite, that we misidentify ourselves with the body and mind and not with the soul. And not understanding Krishna as the supreme and acting without spiritual guidance. That is the ignorance of knowledge for any living entity. And in turns, then the person may start some blind traditions or speculations. So one of the impacts of ignorance of knowledge is that misidentifying with the body and material life, right? Because without knowledge, we suffer unnecessarily due to bodily attachments. And we can see from the example of King Chitraketu's pastime that, when he, after so much of tapasya, he finally gets a son, the child, and of course he dies, and then he is in great pain and agony, and that's where the Narad Muni and Angira Muni, they appear there, and as a sadhu, the king approaches them that, please save me from this thing, and they revive the child from this particular death. And the child actually asks that, I don't know who you are. Are you my father from this birth or previous birth? And when this kind of knowledge is given or spoken, that's where the king realizes his own mistake, that, this is the real knowledge. And my son, a dead son who is coming, he is actually giving me this real knowledge. So this misidentification of the body is one of the impacts which is having on our life. The second thing which also happen is that we end up, the living entity actually end up worshipping demigods or personalities without right understanding. So misdirected devotion, without understanding Krishna's position, and the devotion, even whatever devotion it may be, that devotion is misdirected, which is supposed to be to Lord Krishna, who is the root cause of everything. And if we direct it to that, automatically it goes to other living entities. So we see that from many examples in Bhagavatam, like Ravana or Hiranyakashipu. So Ravana's he was worshipping Shiva without actually understanding of the divinity and the supreme position of Lord Ram. Similarly, Hiranyakashipu was also worshipping Brahmaji without understanding the supremacy of Lord Krishna. So he lacked the knowledge that, that who is the supreme, and that's where the devotion, or rather it was not exactly a devotion, but more of a penance for gaining something, which was misdirected. Another aspect which happens because of the impact of ignorance is following rituals without understanding the purpose behind it. So rituals which are performed without spiritual knowledge can either lead to some wrong understanding, or it can lead to even offense also. So very nice story which comes, which I remember, that there was a sadhu and he was performing yajna in the ashram, And when he was performing the yagya, it was a forest area outside the village, and there was a cat. And this cat was coming all the time, and it was disturbing while the yagya was being performed. So it was spilling milk or some ingredients. So the guru tells that, okay, you tie this cat to a nearby plant, so that she doesn't disturb in the yagya. Now, after some time, like over a period of time, the sadhu dies, and the disciples, they start thinking, okay, now we have to perform yagya. And they start thinking, now we have to search for a cat, because the cat is the part of the yagya. So we have to see what kind of, then the speculation begins. What size cat, what color cat, which direction the cat should face, east or north. And there will be, what if the cat says the meow mantra, which comes out, then what should we do? So all these kind of speculations begins. Now from where it started, this is just a ritual. They felt that, okay, this is a ritual without understanding the purpose. And this is what actually happens with many people. Like, we ask sometimes that, okay, why do this? And many times people don't know, no, this is a tradition, this is a ritual, but not even actually understanding that purpose. So when we understand the purpose, and then when we do the rituals or any service, then it is more meaningful. Another impact which it can causes is arrogance or rebellion due to lack of spiritual understanding. So knowledge must be received from the right source and should be applied. Otherwise, even the supreme, the person who is at the highest position also can fall down. So we can see from the example of King Vena. So there was, like, the sages, they actually put him on the throne. Bhrigu Muni and the other sages, they put him actually on the throne so that he can take care of the kingdom. But he was not doing that. He ended up, doing so much of chaos. And then ultimately they had to take the stand. They actually tried to counsel him, tell him that, okay, this is what you are supposed to do. But out of his ignorance and his stubbornness, his thought process was, I know what is right and I cannot act on it. Rather, I won't act on it. And the result was, actually, the king, the sages, they had to just simply say the mantras loudly, and out of that loud mantras, actually, they killed the King Vena also. So this is also another aspect of impact of ignorance of knowledge. Now, another aspect is that when there is no proper knowledge which is coming from the disciplic succession, and that is also misleads many people, the living entities, they can get misled. And that's why there are so many false teachers or speculators are there. And Lord Chaitanya always emphasized that, this is this for the age of Kali Yuga, this is actually not a boon, but it's a curse. There's so many speculations which are happening, and then the mentality of Sahajiya or Mayavadi mentality can come. So Prabhupada always emphasized that knowledge is the foundation and ignorance is the cause of suffering. So real knowledge is to understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and we are His eternal servants. That is the real knowledge. And Prabhupada tirelessly translated and distributed the books because he knew that this is the knowledge which will awaken the real devotion. So that was the effort. And Prabhupada mentions, the very famous quote Prabhupada mentioned, that religion without philosophy is sentiment or sometimes fanaticism, and while philosophy without religion is mental speculation. So now understanding the impact of ignorance of knowledge, now we will look at the impact of ignorance of skills in devotional service. So what are skills? Basically, they are practical abilities to use whatever knowledge we have received in Krishna's service, may it be cooking or deity worship or somebody performing kirtan or managing the temples, so many things. So what is ignorance of skills is that not knowing how to perform our service properly, or lack of discipline or training, or sometimes even neglecting to improve one's ability out of laziness or false humility. So either it can be laziness because, "Oh, okay, I don't need to do it, let me do it," or we procrastinate that. Or it is a false humility that I'm so fallen that I cannot do this, I cannot learn these skills. So these are the impacts can be there. These are the basic things of ignorance of skills. Now we'll see what are the impacts of if the skills are ignored, ignorance of skills basically. So one, it leads to improper service to Krishna. Krishna deserves our best of our service to whatever. So always Prabhupada emphasized that, that our temples should be best, our standards of deity worship should be best, kirtan, everything. So Prabhupada emphasized on that. So it is not just about the sincerity, but it must be expressed skillfully also. And so if you see, like in Remuna, when Madhavendra Puri was actually looking at the kheer which was being offered to Gopinath, it was not the intention that, okay, let me taste, let me enjoy this, but he wanted to understand how I can acquire the skill to make this kheer so that I can offer it to Gopal at Govardhan. So, so that is what, the desire of a devotee is always, that learn some skills which I can use it in Krishna's service. I remember that many years back, some of our brahmacharis, they went to Govardhan to learn to make son papdi. And it was not an easy thing, right? Like they had to do a lot of menial services before actually learning to make son papdi. They had to wash vessels, in the place like a hotel, But so that is it was not to make a business from that, but it is to offer that in the service of Krishna. So we have to work on this aspect so that we improve our skills. It can also create disturbance in devotional community if the skills are not, we are not utilizing properly. So when devotees lack some kind of interpersonal skills or managerial skills, it can lead to some kind of miscommunication. Sometimes it can create conflicts. And sometimes even the events, the programs can be very poorly organized if there are not, and which ultimately end up spending or wasting the resource which is given by Krishna for us. So we can see that skillful service actually builds trust and harmony. When Krishna wanted to send a messenger to gopis, he chose Uddhava. Why he chose Uddhava? Not just because he has knowledge, but he also had the empathy and the skill for communication. So he communicated the difficult message to the gopis by not only the skill, but also with the compassion and humility. So the right person is required, and right way the message was to be communicated. So it can, the skills also can get into offense through improper rituals, or without understanding care, rituals lose their value and may even become offensive. So Prabhupada's example, like when the yajna was being done and Prabhupada was wanted the fruits to be offered, and the devotees did not know that time what these fruits are meant, and they felt that it's basically for a fruit salad. So actually they cut the fruits, and then Prabhupada chastised them that, what are you doing? So sometimes this kind of, and even for the holy name also. So although we may know that holy name, there are no rules like the other yugas, the kind of rules were there. But there are rules, there are offenses. So if we do not properly chant the holy name, it can actually cause offense. The same holy name can actually deteriorate our progress in Krishna consciousness. Another aspect, the impact which we'll have of ignorance of skill is missed opportunity in quality of services. So the skills actually amplifies our devotion. And we can see from the example of Hanumanji, how Hanumanji, he had those so many skills. There was recently we had Hanuman Jayati and there was so much of glorification of Hanumanji. So he was skilled in so many things, but the most important thing, the service of going from India to Sri Lanka, flying to search for the first Air Lanka, you can say. He was actually able to do that. Not only he could jump, but across the ocean. It was not just the ocean, it was an ocean of obstacles. So with his skills, I mean, I will not go into the detail of that, but each obstacle which faced, he dealt with so much of skills. And not only that, after finding Sita, he encouraged her, gave her the right, you can say, message, giving her a confidence that Lord Ram is coming. And then he used his skill to burn Lanka also, additional service. So the impact of this ignorance of skills can lead to repeated failure or frustrations, and sometimes even losing our enthusiasm also to the service. So even the most skilled person, but also should remain humble. But at the same time, the quality of humility should be there, but the person has to be trained and should be aware about so many things so that he can perform or she can perform the skills nicely. Prabhupada himself was always developing new skills. Prabhupada went to America and he wanted to translate books, and he learned how to use dictaphone. That is a skill Prabhupada learned at the age of 70, right? And not only that, he taught the skills. So many disciples, they did not know how to wear dhoti, how to wear clothes, cooking, so many things. And he utilized the skills of those who had, some of them had the skills of photography or many other aspects. So painting, yes. So he used those skills in Krishna's service. So devotion must be there, but if it is performed skillfully, it pleases Krishna. That's what Prabhupada emphasized. Now we'll look at now I know that there are many very impacts, but because of the time constraint, we can restrict ourselves to the number of examples and number of lessons from here. So impact of ignorance now. We understood the impact of knowledge, impact of skills, and now we'll discuss the impact of ignorance of values. So values are the core for any organization to build their vision statement. They have to first think what are our core values. That is what is seen. And this is a moral compass for a character and conduct of a devotee. So when these values are ignored, what happens is that knowing philosophy but not practicing the qualities which are being taught in the philosophy, or emphasizing the rituals and knowledge while neglecting the behavior. These are some of the understandings of ignorance of values. And most important thing is disregarding the devotee etiquettes or Vaishnava culture. So these are the ignorance of values. And let's now see the impact of ignorance of values. So one is that it can end up offending devotees and great souls. And ignorance of values like humility or respect, Chaitanya Shikshashtakam emphasized, Lord Chaitanya is emphasizing on these core values for any devotional life. It can offend Krishna himself. And we see from the pastime of Durvas Muni, So Amrish Maharaj was a very simple, he was of course a king, but just because of a small offense, he was cursed. And Lord Vishnu is saying that I am in the heart of my devotees, I am sold to them. And when such a person is being dealt with in such a manner or cursed, then the Lord doesn't spare that person. And the Sudarshan Chakra was chasing him, and only he could save because of the forgiveness of Amrish Maharaj. So, offending devotees or the great soul is one of the impacts, and which is one of the deadliest impact which we can have. And the another impact could be that pride can come because out of birth or status or external purity. So without humility or without that simplicity, even knowledge become useless. And there is, Prabhupada tells this story how, a Brahmana and a cobbler, they're sitting, and the question is being asked that, can the Lord pass the elephant through the needle of through the eye of a needle? And the Brahmana is saying that, no, it is impossible, not possible. How this can be, even we can think. And the cobbler, who is a simple person, who is not so much educated, but having that understanding of values, he says that if Krishna can, bring a whole tree through the seed, then why can't he do this? So that is the faith. And, so irrespective of birth or status or external purity, these are the important things which we can actually see from the ignorance of values. Another thing which can have impact is ritualism without compassion. So, ignorance of inner values like care or fairness or compassion even sometimes makes the pious acts, fruitless. They're no fruit. Like, there's an example, there's a story which comes about King Nriga. And we all know that how he was, he gave cows in charity with a good intention. He gave cows. And one cow by mistake came back to him, and then the same cow was even given to another Brahmana. And the first Brahmana came, where is my cow? Now, of course, it was not intentional, but ignoring the distress of this Brahmana or ignoring the distress of the devotees can actually, he was ultimately cursed and become a lizard. So lack of attentiveness and compassion, so that can cause a severe impact in our devotional life. A false renunciation and external show, that is another impact because of ignorance of values. Ignorance of integrity and personal discipline actually weakens the devotional life. And Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a description how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected Chota Haridas. So what was the mistake of Chota Haridas? Actually, he was interacting with a woman, stick rocking to her intimately and with a lusty desire while collecting. He went to collect alms. He was in a denounced order actually. So Lord Chaitanya took it very seriously. It was a grave matter. And he rejected Chota Haridas from his association. So, because the renunciate must live by the highest moral values, Lord Chaitanya wanted to show, although the offense was not so grave, but he wanted to show by example. So, this is also the impact of ignorance of values. So, knowledge without values is dangerous. So devotion must be expressed in behavior and not just the philosophy, because we can sit on the Vyasasana and give big lectures, but it has to be expressed in our behavior, our character. And Prabhupada also said that a real devotee is not known by how much he knows, but by how he lives. So Prabhupada actually many times said that the devotees of Krishna consciousness, the ISKCON devotees, are perfect ladies and gentlemen. That is the expectation from Srila Prabhupada. It may not be, but that is the expectation is from Srila Prabhupada. So, Now, since we have discussed now the ignorance part, the impact of ignorance of knowledge, skills and values, now we'll look at the impact of false ego, because we are now discussing two aspects. One is knowledge and the other is false ego. So false ego of knowledge means becoming proud of one's scriptural learning and philosophical grasp. It causes subtle but dangerous deviation, thinking I am learned instead of I am a servant. So being learned or being a servant, that is the thing which happens. And I remember that one of the first Bhakti Shastri course which took place, and that after that His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj told the devotees who received the Bhakti Shastri certificate, and he said that all these certificates are good, but ultimately the aim of having this knowledge is to understand that we are the eternal servant of the servant of the servant. That is the summum bonum of learning all these scriptures. So, one of the impacts of false ego of knowledge is it leads to pride and arrogance instead of humility. And actually, the knowledge should lead us to humility. Ravana also had so much of knowledge, but no humility. When Vibhishan actually came to tell him that, okay, you give up Sita. You live peacefully, you have everything, so you just give up this aspect. But he was not ready to accept this thing because of his knowledge and his position. It also causes offense to devotees of the Lord. So we can see from the example, like the story comes of Parashar. When Parashar was a small boy, and this great learned person, he actually came to defeat. He was defeating everyone, and he was so arrogant because of his knowledge. And Parashar was a small boy. He just picked up the sand and said that, how many particles of sands are there in this? Please tell me. And he was speechless. He said that how can he challenge? A small boy can challenge. And then Parashar very humbly says that, sir, forgive me, but you are so blinded by arrogance that you can't see the good qualities in others. A tree with good fruits bend down, and a person with good qualities bow lows to other virtues. All of your knowledge is as worthless as sand if it doesn't help you develop good character and devotion to God. So that is the message the small Parashar gave. It also blocks the path of bhakti through intellectual knowledge. False ego is one of the intellectual capacity that blinds the heart of the sweetness of bhakti. And that's like when Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya, when he met Lord Chaitanya, so Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya was a great scholar in logic. And when he met, he said that, oh, this young sannyasi needs to be trained in Vedanta by me. So he was thinking, because he's just chanting. And Mahaprabhu simply chanted the holy name and eventually melted the heart of Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya, transformed him. So then he realized that devotion is not a dry logic, it is the goal of life. So false ego in knowledge leads to also endless debate and no transformation. So we see that so many people, they start thinking that, oh, now I have so much of knowledge, let me debate. So their ecstasy is in debate, not in actually transformation. And when Rup Narayan, who was on his victory spree again for winning the debates, and he came to Vrindavan to debate with Rup and Sanatan Goswami. But Rup and Sanatan Goswami, they were not interested in this debate. They said that we have better things to do in our spiritual life progress. So actually they rejected. They said, we accept, we sign that we are defeated. But of course, when he approached Jiva Goswami wanted to defeat him, because to prove that Rupa and Sanatan Goswami they are not some ordinary personalities. So we can actually, this mentality, the false ego can lead us into the debate that I am right and you are wrong. So this mentality can come. It also hinders surrender and cause delay in spiritual progress. false ego is the resistance, it resists actually surrender. In the face of divine intervention, actually Krishna told Duryodhan that, okay, you are to accept this land, give the Pandavas some land so that they can perform their duty as a king, as their king. But Duryodhan his attitude was, I know dharma, but I cannot follow it. I will not do it. So that is the hindrance, that even if the Lord is coming and telling, he was not able to surrender. So to conclude that point is that true knowledge is not about winning arguments, but realizing our identity and as a Krishna's eternal servant. So a truly learned man is humble and he never thinks himself superior to others. So now we look at the skills aspect, that, false ego of skills is also a subtle pride that arises from thinking that I am the best at this service and others should recognize me, that, okay, I am good in performing nice kirtan or nice cooking or nice lecture. So it leads to competition, criticism and loss of devotion. So one of the impacts is that loss of bhakti due to self-centered service. So what is this self-centered? Like even useful skills like caring or protecting can become harmful when misused with ego. Now this ego can be very subtle. Sometimes we are taking care of some devotees and we think that, okay, I have the skills to counsel or do anything. So this also can, cause havoc. So King Bharat actually renounced everything, but he got caught up and the subtle false ego came into the picture, that I have to take care of this deer, the baby deer. So, and because of that, he was completely diverted and being a protector of that deer. Actually, Krishna is protecting everyone, but we start thinking that, okay, I have the skill to protect people. It is not that. So the other impact is causing division or competition in devotional service. Or skills or positions with false ego can lead to envy and offense, even towards the Lord also. So we can see from the Indra's position, that Indra was thinking that I am the protector. His position is that, okay, that I am giving rains. So I should get the yagya, the fruits of everything, of the Rajavasis which we are doing. So he tried to destroy the Vrindavan. Ultimately, Krishna destroyed his pride by lifting the Govardhan hill and showing that this is the impact. The false ego can be destructive in your devotional service. Another aspect is using skills for personal recognition. So sometimes we develop the skills and we feel that, okay, now this is something which I'll be recognized by this this particular skills. So false ego of one's role and skills lead to resistance in spiritual path. So Daksha's position was very powerful and he was skilled to create progeny. And when Narad Muni instructed his sons to remove material desires for spiritual, Daksha was become furious. He said that this is my skill, this is my area. How can you enter this? So this is also the impact of false ego and skills. And offending simpler devotees. Sometimes we find that some devotees are very unassuming, and they are actually very dear to the Lord. And Krishna value their humility and surrender and not the external skills. So Krishna, the Vidura was also, like Duryodhana and Vidura, Krishna chose Vidura over Duryodhana. Duryodhana was, in comparison from the skills point of view, was very much skilled. He was a king. and Vidura was one of the ministers, but Krishna chose the simple offering, the love and devotion of Vidura, than going to Duryodhana. So skills are beautiful when it is offered in humility, but the skills are dangerous when it is used for ego or with ego. So Prabhupada said that bhakti is not about being a big man, it's about being a humble servant. So now we'll look at the impact of false egos of values. So these values are meant to support devotion and not to replace the devotion. So false ego of value actually arises when a person becomes proud of their moral conduct or discipline and begin to judge others, forgetting that heart of the bhakti is humility and surrender. So that is the impact of false ego. Now we'll see that pride in the renunciation or austerity leads to criticism. So values without devotion become dry and critical. So Ramchandra Puri was extremely austere personality, but he was criticizing others for not being renounced enough, and he did not even thought about stopping when it came to Lord Chaitanya. He criticized Lord Chaitanya that you are eating too much of sweets, and as a sannyasi he is eating opulently. So to set the example, of course, Lord Chaitanya, he stopped that eating sweets. But the real lesson is that false ego in austerity turns into judgment and offense. So he went to judge even the Lord himself. So thinking of moral values are greater than bhakti. So values without alignment to Krishna's will are incomplete. So we can see the great personalities like Dronacharya, Kripacharya. They were in the Kurukshetra war. Of course, that was also Krishna's plan. So they were loyal to Kauravas, justifying their support based on duty and gratitude. They stuck to their values but sided against Krishna and Krishna's devotees. So they were disciplined and moral, but they lacked to surrender on Krishna's side. So this is one of the impacts of the false ego. One can become judgmental of devotees. Krishna is moved by the love, not by the self-proclaimed virtues. So when Krishna in his Bal Leela, he would go to the marketplace and the simple fruit vendors offered him fruits without expecting anything in return. And didn't have any lofty values, just simple love, out of love. So Krishna loved that, and when Krishna and Balram, they actually went to the Brahmanas who were performing yajnas, they are too absorbed in the rituals and pride in purity to recognize the Krishna's divinity. But their wives, they were simple-hearted, and they were ready to offer everything to Krishna, all the fruits. And another impact which can be is rejecting devotional acts as sentimental. So ego of philosophical purity or self-restraint blinds one from seeing the true devotion. So here we can see from the example of Prakashanand Saraswati. He knew that Lord was a Vaishnava sannyasi, and therefore he minimized the value of Lord before those who brought him the news that, okay, so sannyasi, the Lord has come. He depreciated the activities of the Lord because of his preaching, the Sankirtan movement, which was, according to him, his opinion, that is just a religious sentiment. So that can be the impact of the false ego. So in conclusion, that true values are meant to support our bhakti but not become source of pride. So Prabhupada said that if you follow moral principles but forget Krishna, then what is the use of your morality? Devotion must be the center, not just the moral values. So in this particular purport, it is also said that now we talked about knowledge, skills of values in the impact which it has because of the ignorance and the false ego. But it is not just that. Actually, in this particular purport, Prabhupada actually says that reason for creation of this material, what is the reason? The compassionate nature of the Lord, it is not to punish. We always talk about the material nature is a place where it is suffering. It is not just about suffering. It is meant for austerity. It is meant for tapasya basically. And to tapasya, what is the tapasya? Tapasya of gaining the knowledge and then applying that knowledge and with the skills and develop values. So to know is know the knowledge, to do is application of that knowledge, and to be is develop the values that will please the Lord. That is the ultimate offering which we can do to the Lord. So this ignorance and false ego, that is, the Lord has given us so many gurus, sadhus, and the whole shastras are available to remove the ignorance and false ego. So guru's role is very, very important in removing this both false ego and ignorance. So Dhenukasura exemplifies actually false ego and ignorance. So when we carry the burden of these material desires, pride, or fruitless labor, we become like a Dhenukasura, unable to enjoy the sweet fruits of the spiritual life. He was guarding the Talavan, the Tala fruit which was there. So the false ego is actually blocking the access to the spiritual sweetness. So these delicious fruits no one could enjoy because of this demon. The demon is not just the Dhenukasura, the demon of false ego and ignorance. So because of that, we are not able to enjoy that sweetness. And because Dhenukasura was guarding the forest. So similarly, false ego is guarding our heart, preventing us from tasting this sweetness. And Balramji as a Guru Tattva, he comes to remove the obstacles. So Balramji, of course, represents Guru Tattva in the original spiritual master. And only he can kill Dhenuka. So only by this mercy of the spiritual master can the burden of ignorance and ego can be removed, allowing us to access the spiritual realm. So after these demons are removed, the devotees can enjoy the fruits. When Balramji actually killed Dhenukasura, and then all the Gopas, Krishna and Balram, all they were enjoying. So removing ignorance and opens the path of relishing the fruits of bhakti. Sometimes we start thinking that why we are not able to relish the bhakti in spite of so many years of practicing. So sometimes we do not enjoy the kirtan, or sometimes even, of course, prasad is one aspect, but sometimes the other aspects like sangha, or sometimes lectures, it doesn't give joy, so boring. But the deep internal joy will come only when these two aspects are removed. So Dhenukasura actually represents a person who is spiritually dull, unwilling to change, and hostile to bhakti. But Krishna and Balram, they don't destroy such tendency out of anger, but out of compassion, clearing the way for joy and devotion. So in the beginning we discussed about the Ashraya Tattva. So if we just take the shelter of this Ashraya Tattva, we being the Ashrita Tattva, then it can transform our heart and we can actually take shelter and transcend this false ego and ignorance and develop love for Krishna. So these are some thoughts on today's verse. There are many things which I might have said which are beyond my realization or my practice, but this is what Prabhupada has given, Acharyas have told. So I just thought of sharing that. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। हरे कृष्ण।